Hi, everybody. Hey, sorry, I got here a moment late, later than I intended to.
I can't hear you. Hang on.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so CJ, hopefully you can figure out why you can't. Oh, you can't hear me. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I was a moment late. I had a call and it ended at like right at 12. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jill Cruz. I am a board certified nutrition specialist and my background is in functional medicine. And mostly what I do these days is I help women overcome that hate dieting to lose weight and feel great without being deprived. I'd like to ask everybody to just mute yourselves because I'm recording this call. So other people will be listening to it and it's easier without having any kind of, background stuff going on. So we are talking about what it means to eat mindfully today. And I love this topic. If you have something to write on, that would be helpful. It could be your phone, your computer, a piece of paper, because I'm going to ask you to do some exercises throughout the process. So we're going to start with, I'm going to screen share into a presentation on Keynote or PowerPoint, however for me it's Keynote. And we're going to go through the slides and most of the time when I'm talking, you can just listen. If you have questions, there is a chat box at the bottom. You can click on that and put your question in there or your comment. The only thing is while I'm presenting, I can't see your questions. So I won't know that you're asking me a question until after I end, go out of that screen share situation. So this is different from a normal webinar where it is interactive and I want it to be interactive. So I will at a certain point go out of screen share and ask you to do some activities and that sort of thing. But while I'm in screen share, I cannot see what you're putting in there. But if you're worried you're going to forget your question or you just want to get that thought out right away, go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay. So I'm going to go right into the screen share now. And as I said, this is all about what it means to eat mindfully. So some of you may have heard this story before, but I think it always bears repeating in any case. Back in 2001, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Belle, I discovered the most amazing flavor of Haagen-Dazs ice cream called Belgian chocolate. It is delicious. It has this dark, creamy chocolate ice cream and mixed in are these subtle little slivers of dark Belgian chocolate. I do not recommend trying it. So when I was pregnant with Belle, I ate this ice cream a lot to the point where by the time she was born, I was pretty much addicted to the ice cream. I like to say that it was kind of like my master. And this is Belle when she was a baby. She was also a little master to me as well. She was always a little bit of a challenging child. But, I was really pretty much heavily into the habit of eating that ice cream, even by the time she was born. But the ice cream was a support mechanism for me because after a long day of being alone with this little sweet monster, I was tired. The house was a mess. I was getting spit up on and changing my clothes. I was trying to figure out breastfeeding, all of this stuff. So at the end of the day, I needed a treat. I was like tapped out. So when she was asleep and my husband was asleep and there was no one bothering me, I would sit and I would eat this ice cream every single night. When I was pregnant, it was fun. After the baby came, became a necessity, really. And I also, every day, I would look forward to eating that ice cream, which is an important point that I'll come back to later on. So I basically developed this nighttime eating habit that lasted for 15 years. I eventually figured it out. Like right now, I can say I no longer have this eating habit, but it did take me 15 years to figure it out. And granted, the first couple of years, I didn't even think it was a problem. However, it took me a long time to figure it out. This is Belle now. She's almost 18 in the light pink. And then Sonia, my other daughter, who's almost 14. So now I no longer have this habit. And part of the reason why I do weight loss and blood sugar regulation stuff is because I'm passionate about, you know, teaching people about what I learned in my own journey. So the first thing many, many years ago, before I was a nutritionist, the thing that I really discovered was that I had to eat foods that were nutritious. So if I ate foods that were nutritious during the day, it helped me at night. Did it stop my habit? No, but it helped me to be more level-headed. I was able to finally think, okay, do I really need to eat ice cream? Could it be something else? And so I really focused on eating nutritiously for a while there, and I was able to overcome the ice cream part of it for the most part. But pretty soon after that, I realized I was getting very obsessed about eating healthfully and nutritiously. And I didn't pay attention to the taste. And what I realized was that I also had to enjoy my foods. So these days I call it eat nutritious and enjoy delicious. So I feel it very strongly that we have to have both. We can't just be eating nutritious foods and being like, oh, I don't care what it tastes like. I mean, this salad right here looks good, but where's the dressing? So, you know, I mean, this actually would be a really tasty salad if it had salad dressing on it, in my opinion. Everybody's different, but definitely nutritious without a doubt. So we have to get a balance of both. And what happened was I went from eating a lot of ice cream, Haagen-Dazs ice cream every night, every single night, to eating nutritiously. So then I started eating things that were healthier, but they really weren't that tasty. Then I evolved into making all these cool little treats at night. And for anybody who knows, who's worked with me on this call, you know that I have lots of ideas for treats and things that you can eat that are less filled with processed sugar and more homemade stuff. So I became kind of an expert in that. However, I still had the problem of the nighttime eating habit. So what I realized was it was all up here. So I was nourishing my body properly, I was satisfied with my meals, but I still had this basically addiction. And that's where I found that you really, when you're trying to eat healthfully for whatever your goal is, whether it's weight loss or blood sugar or autoimmune, or it doesn't matter. A lot of the challenge is up in the mindset. And that's why I talk about mindful eating. So I just want to go out of screen share for a minute here because I would like to, I can probably stay in screen share actually. No, I want to see everybody. It's better that way. So I would love, now is a time when you could unmute yourself or you could put it in the chat if you don't want to, you know, be on camera or whatever. I would love to hear what you think is when I say mindful eating. What does that mean to you? And this is where you would unmute yourself to speak.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, CJ.
For me, mindful eating is anything but what I'm currently doing. I think I am the most mindless eater, have been my entire life. Mm-hmm. I just ate lunch before I got on this webinar, and it was incredibly healthy, but I ate it at record speed, and there was no connection with my food. I was just shoveling it down my face, despite the fact that I had made very healthy choices that I'm sure you would have given a green light to.
Okay.
My eating is very mindless.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Does anybody else have anything they would like to share in terms of what you think of what is mindful eating?
Oh.
No?
Because I cherish my cooking,
Mm-hmm.
it's appreciating every ingredient that goes into what you prepare to go into your body, and treating it with respect and actually love, because it supports you,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have been through cancer. And
Right.
food
Right.
really proved to be the most healing agent of the entire journey. Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome. You did all the work, but yes, I'm glad I was part
Your
of the journey.
direction. Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, so this is interesting because the focus of my talk today is actually not about that kind of mindful eating, but I do want to talk about it because it is part of mindful eating. So I'm going to go back into the screen share now for a few seconds. And so what I'm going to talk about a little bit is what it is not. Mindful eating is not about being a meditation guru and being at one and zen every single time you eat. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about knowing everything, what your body needs. We don't always know. We want to know, but it's not always clear. And I think that's okay. It's part of the journey. So many people come to me and they're like, well, what should I eat? I hear, keto and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know what to eat. And it's like, well, I actually don't know either. This is a discovery process and it can change, which I think is kind of a cool thing, the fact that it can change. But also it's not about trying to be something that you're not overnight. Like all of a sudden, like if you do tend to shovel the food in, all of a sudden being, taking 20 minutes to eat your meal. Just mostly because it's just not realistic to expect that. But what mindful eating is, in my estimation of spending a lot of time thinking about this, is first of all, understanding what you want and why you want it. And we're going to go through what I'm going to ask you to do is write some of this stuff down so that you can kind of explore this for yourself. Being aware of your strengths and weaknesses. So one, that CJ already mentioned was, spending all this time and money, usually, right, and effort creating this beautiful meal, and then it's gone in 30 seconds, or you don't even appreciate it when you're eating it. So, being aware of that sort of thing, and also setting realistic goals, having a plan, and also being aware of crucial moments. And that's where I think also we can bring the conversation to what you both, Marianne and CJ, what you mentioned. So we're going to go into each of these things in more detail. So what happens if you're not mindful about your eating habits? That's an interesting question. Like, who cares if you're mindful or not, right? Well, the problem, as what happened with me, is that I was not mindful. That was kind of me, although I always like a smaller spoon and no cookies. Watching TV and eating the ice cream mindlessly. But the whole thing was that started as a stress release and it turned into a habit. And I was completely mindless about not only what was happening in the moment, but all the moments that led up to my sitting there eating that ice cream. And unfortunately, that developed a bad habit that I didn't even understand for many, 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 many years. So what I felt, the thing that really got me in the end, I was eating a ton of ice cream. I gained some weight, but I was pregnant. It didn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Like, it didn't really bother me. I didn't have any health issues from it that I knew of. What ultimately got me in the end was that feeling that I did not have control. And I think that that's the big issue with mindless eating, is a lack of control. And so that's kind of what, is a very detrimental effect. And most people are walking around totally mindless about this stuff. So the first thing that, going back on my journey on the process I went through to overcome this bad habit that I had at night, was I actually had to have a reason to stop. That was the most important thing. So when you're doing this mindful eating thing, why do you even care? That's something that the first process, and this is where if you have paper, you have computer, or whatever, you can type it on your phone, whatever you want. In order to make a change, you need a compelling reason to change it. So that also goes into the why. So the first things I'd like you to think about is, do you have a specific goal? And if you do, why do you want to accomplish that goal? So you can even start writing that down now. If you want to, I have my phone here to keep track of time. So maybe just picking one thing, that overarching goal. It could be, I want to have lots of energy, or it could be, I want to prevent cancer recurrence, or it could be, I want to lose weight, I want to sleep well at night. Something broad and general, not something, we're not going to get into the minutia right now. And then think about why you want this. And I would like you to go deep with this, not just, you know, let's say the example of sleep. Why do you want to sleep well, have good sleep? Well, because I don't want bags under my eyes. Well, that's a great reason, but it's pretty superficial. Can you go deeper with it? Why do I not want to have bags under my eyes? Or what else is it about sleep that is affecting my body? And try to go, like, ask yourself why multiple times, so that you go deep into more of the emotional reasons behind it. Because a lot of times people come up with stuff like, I'm afraid of death, or I realize that, you know, I really don't love myself, and this to me is a reflection of self-love and self-care, and I want to give myself that. Do you know what I mean? So getting deeper into the reasons why. So I'm gonna like be silent for like a minute and just give you guys some time to really think about this, write it down. Hopefully you've been writing already, going on and on. I'm just going to put the timer on for a minute. And I'm going to drink my smoothie a little bit. So a minute is a very short amount of time. I invite you, the reason why I actually, you know, it's a little bit weird to be in the middle of a presentation and say, okay, I'm going to be silent for a minute, but you know, sometimes people, it's the only time you're going to take to give to yourself for self-care today. So I wanted to really force you to think about this at least a little bit, but really it's just the beginning. I would highly recommend that you even just take like 5 minutes after this call to go a little bit more deep with that, especially with the whys, because the why is a tool. It is a tool that you can use in those moments when you are tempted or you're frustrated. You know, sometimes you think, well, I'm doing all this work and I'm not getting the results that I want. What's going on? This is so frustrating. Oh yeah, but at the same time, everything that I'm doing is helping my body, hopefully, most likely. And, you know, thinking about why it is that you want to be healthy. Because ultimately, I think most people, when we talk about eating, the goal is to actually be healthy, to live a long life, to be able to play with your grandchildren, to be able to travel, or if you don't have grandchildren, your friends' grandchildren. To do all of the things that we want to do in life, to really enjoy life. So because the fact of the matter is, it's hard to eat healthily. It's really hard. And we need all the tools we can get. So think of the whys as tools that you can use. Does anybody want to, I'm going to go out of the screen sharing for a second and see, is there anybody who would like to share about this? Do you want to just kind of state publicly, like, I want this and this is why? If not, it's fine. Don't feel pressure. You can put it in the chat box. But if you do, you would just unmute yourself and just, you know, say something.
The question is asking us to share a little bit about the why.
The why and or what you want to accomplish.
All right. Well, I know that in my why, I want to eat more mindfully because I think that my not eating mindfully, which has been my guiding force, is a reflection of lack of inner calm. Because I think there's a frenzy about when I eat. And I think it's an unhealthy relationship with food. And I'd like to develop that inner calm and that peaceful relationship with food. I mean, after all, we need it to live. It seems that every time I put my hand to my mouth with food, it's a fretful, stressful kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's great. I have a book I'm going to put in the chat that you might like, CJ. It's called The Slow Down Diet. I forget the author, Mark something. It's an old book. It's a little tiny book.
Wow.
Amazing book about how to eat mindfully, like around the meal part. So, and for anybody, this is a great little book. Okay, cool. So, it's important to understand why, and like what you just said right there, CJ, was actually extremely powerful. That was some deep stuff. So that's where I want you to go with this, is getting deeper. Hold on, I'm just gonna move this thing over here. And that's where you kind of have to be, because it is challenging. And if you don't go deep with it, you're probably not going to change too much. And this is a process, of course, of discovery. So the next really important thing about mindful eating is understanding your own weaknesses and recognizing your own strengths. And so I would invite you to also write this down right now. Are you someone who's super busy and stressed? That's going to make things difficult for you. Are you someone who's resistant to change? It's pretty common, you know, people call me and they want to, you know, they want advice, but they're not really necessarily ready to change. And that's okay, but at least recognize it, that that's the type of person you are, because when you're trying to do things differently, and I think that's what we're all here for, right? To do something a little bit differently. If you don't understand your strengths and weaknesses, it's going to make it more challenging.
Jill, I have a comment.
Do you need more information? Do you have support? Some people have a lot of support from their spouse or their friends, or they have like a buddy, you know, a gym buddy or whatever. That's a strength. Do you have low support? Do you have somebody in your house who always has all this junk food? That's a weakness. So recognizing this stuff and really trying to like write it down is going to be important. And again, this is about self-awareness. So I met a woman at a talk, actually CJ was at that talk, it's kind of funny, back at the library last year. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, I've been doing this boot camp thing. It was through a gym. They were doing the boot camp and they were also doing a diet, like a very restrictive, almost like a Whole30, like a very restrictive diet. And it was like day 28. And she said, you know, I've lost weight. I'm exhausted, but you know, they were doing 6 days a week, I think, at like 6 in the morning. She's like, I lost weight and I do feel better overall, but I cannot wait for it to end. When is it going to end? It's driving me crazy. So to me, maybe it's fun to do that for 30 days. Maybe, I don't know. For some people, it might be fun. But the reality is most of the time, those extreme things, they don't last. So it's important for you to understand yourself and what makes you tick. Some people maybe did that and then they just kept doing it. But not everybody's like that, and most people aren't. So understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, what's realistic for you, is really important. And because the thing is, I'm pretty sure that there is nobody ever who would say, I want to spend the next 3 months suffering and doing something that's so extreme and lose weight and lose 15 pounds, or suddenly have all my rashes on my body go away, whatever the issue is. And then have it all come back 6 months from now. Nobody wants that. So my approach more and more and more now is like, let's just take it slowly. Let's just see what works and what doesn't, and be realistic about it. So you only have to lose the weight once. You only have to do the restrictions once. You don't have to keep doing it over and over again. So the part of this, and I already mentioned it in an earlier slide, is planning. Planning, having goals, and planning. And so that's what we're going to talk about now. So not only is mindful eating knowing what you want and why you want it, and understanding your strengths and weaknesses, these are all part of mindful eating. But it's also important to have goals. And those goals need to be realistic, as I mentioned. It can't be, know who you are, what you can tolerate, and what you can't. Make it realistic and change slowly. Measurable goals means, so there are two types of goals. There's process-oriented and outcome-oriented goals. A process-oriented goal is what you do in your daily life. It could be, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, or I'm going to eat more fiber, or whatever it is. An outcome-oriented goal is a specific thing, usually more measurable, but not necessarily. A specific, like when I say goal, it's more what you think of. Like, I want to be able to sleep through the night. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lower my blood sugar to a normal range. Whatever it is, that's a very outcome-oriented goal. The problem is, if you're always focusing on the outcome, you're not really going to, you're not necessarily going to adopt new habits that will change who you are and how you function in this world. And that's really, those are the process-oriented goals. So, and then when you set your goals, now you may be, because I would like for you to actually think of some goals right now. You already kind of know what you want to accomplish. You know that there's your strong reasons why, more or less, right? But how are you going to get there? What is your goal, and how are you going to get there? As my daughter is the one who brought this quote to me, but it's apparently quite out there in the world. A goal without a plan is just a wish. And I talk about planning so much. It's not just about planning for the next 6 months and the next 3 months. It's about planning for tomorrow and this weekend. So when I work with my clients, I just got off the phone with a client just now, and we were talking about, what is the plan for the next couple of days? Does she have guests coming? Is she going out to eat? Is she traveling? All of that stuff. What's your plan for that? Always have a plan. Always. And I'm talking like Saturday morning, writing out your plan for the week. This is one of the most important aspects of mindful eating. The mindfulness does not start when you sit down at the table or at the couch in front of the TV. The mindfulness starts when you wake up in the morning. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. It literally starts when you wake up in the morning. So that's where the planning comes into play. And what you can do if you're not sure how to get to your, and we can talk about this, pretty sure we should have time. We could, if somebody wants to bring a specific thing, we can actually design a little short version of a plan for you. So let's say you have a goal. The plan is really starting with building new habits. That's really what the plan is. But it really can only be one habit at a time. If you try to, let's say you want to lower your blood sugar. If you try to do a ketogenic diet and, start lifting weights 5 days a week, and you're not doing any of that right now, it's probably going to fail. So one thing at a time. And there is one person on this call, I won't mention any names, who is quite a master at doing one thing at a time. I have to give a shout out for that. because it really does make a difference when you do one thing at a time. You're not overwhelmed. And part of this is change is painful. It hurts to change, we as humans. But if you do it gradually, it's almost imperceptible. And that way, instead of using willpower, and we're going to talk more about willpower, but you can replace your willpower with habits, which is, I think, the coolest thing in the entire world. So CJ has used the example, I'll just use it for now because she volunteered the information of, I really want to be mindful at my meal with my eating. I want to slow down and eat my meal slowly and really enjoy. That's a hard habit to do, but it's completely doable. How would you start with that? Well, you would say, okay, 3 months from now, I want to be eating 3 meals a day. Maybe that's too much. Maybe 2 meals a day, fully present. That's a measurable goal. You have a date attached to it. And it's very measurable because it's 2 meals a day. Either is it 2 meals a day or is it not? It's 2. You can count it, right? So it's measurable. And it's got a date. And now the plan is, okay, I'm going to start with one thing. I'm going to start with taking 5 deep breaths every time I sit down at the table to eat. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. The rest is just left to chance. And it may seem like such a silly little, tiny little thing, right? Like, how is that going to change anything? But that's where you start, and then you build on it. So if you're able to do that for the next 2 weeks, every time you sit down at the table, you take 5 deep breaths. Close your eyes. Now you're starting to build a habit, and it's going to feel unnatural to not do that. That's mindful eating. So then once you're kind of getting the rhythm of that, you can say, all right, I've been doing really well. I haven't done it every time, but I've done it like 80% of the time. Maybe it's time for me to add something new to this. Maybe I am going to count my chews for the first 5 bites. There's so many different ways that you could approach this, but that's kind of a cool thing. Now I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, and I'm going to count my chews for the first 5 bites. Very measurable. And I'm going to do this every time I eat for the next 2 weeks. Do you see what I'm saying? Now you have a plan, and you're changing your habits. Now you may think, and you would be correct in thinking, that taking 5 breaths before a meal requires willpower, because it does. It absolutely does. So the willpower is only necessary when you're doing something that's not a habit. So I don't know about any of you, but it certainly doesn't take any willpower for me to tie my shoelaces or drive to work. There's no willpower. Well, work maybe sometimes for some people, but the act of driving is a habit. It doesn't take any willpower. There are a million things we do throughout the day that are habits that do not require willpower. So you see where the magic is. If you can get to the point where you've done it so many times, it's a habit, no longer requires willpower. Oh, maybe a little bit, certain things. Like for me to get to the gym, maybe a little bit of willpower. But to be honest, and this leads into my next point, this is why I go to the gym in the morning. I and probably the vast majority of people have way more willpower in the morning than we do at night. So willpower is a limited resource. If you're stressed, if you're tired, if you're both, which most people are, willpower is, you can look at, like, almost imagine one of those thermometer things that, they have like in cartoons where it goes all the way down. the red indicator is going all the way to the bottom. That's kind of how most people are at like 5 p.m. on any given work day. Willpower is gone. And that's also why I had this nighttime eating habit, because by the end of the day, I was shot. In the morning, I was, the happy mom. In the evening, I was like, get that kid away from me. It's not really, I'm half joking. But, building that habit is going to take away the need for willpower. And so therefore, if you found it was very difficult to do 5 breaths every meal, why not just do it for breakfast when your willpower is highest? You have to see, you have to play with it and see what works and what doesn't. Because, and I want to go back to this slide. The reason why I have this slide is because it's a dog, right? Dogs, they're mostly instinctual. Animals in general. We humans, we have this prefrontal cortex part of our brain that says, no, Jill, ice cream is bad for you. Dog does not have that. A dog will eat something that will kill it. Doesn't care, it's food, right? So we have these two parts of our brains that are a little bit opposed. We have our animal brain, our dog brain, and we have our human brain that's saying, no, you want to be healthy, you want to sleep well, you want to eat mindfully, whatever your goals are. So remembering that the habits are driven by the animal part of you can kind of help you along with this too, to say, wait a minute, that urge that I'm having is not real. That's actually the animal part of my brain that's pushing me to do this thing that my higher brain knows is not good for me. So having that dialogue is part of mindfulness. And one last note on willpower. I love this expression. I came up with it myself. I don't know if anybody else has ever said it, but I always say habits are the antidote to willpower. Habits are the antidote to willpower. So if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of discipline, and that's maybe there's a genetic piece to that, it's okay. Just change slowly. Just change really slowly and make it a habit. And then you don't need all that discipline and willpower. So this is the part that I think is sort of the culmination of everything that I've talked about, and that is crucial moments. So well, I'll use an example of myself and then maybe CJ, or if anybody else, I can get out of the screen share after this. And if anybody else has something you want me to like workshop you with, we can do that, because I think everybody benefits from it. But when I was eating that ice cream every night, when did I decide I was going to eat that ice cream? That was a crucial moment. Probably when I bought it, right? Like, because I was always buying it. It was always in the house. By the way, I was eating almost an entire pint of ice cream every night. So I was buying 6 or 7 pints of ice cream a week for years. Think about that. I made that decision at the supermarket. So that's a crucial moment. So think about when, and another crucial moment for me was at night after my daughter, everybody was asleep and I was sitting there reading a book or watching TV. I made a decision to get up and go into the kitchen and get that ice cream. Again, a crucial moment. I could have just said no. It's not like I was going to die if I didn't eat that ice cream. But my animal brain was pushing me. And my prefrontal cortex was like, because it was nighttime and I was stressed and tired, but also because I really didn't have a strong reason to not eat the ice cream. So you see how what I talked about earlier all comes into play into these crucial moments. Being aware of why you want to do this thing and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and don't leave yourself vulnerable. The problem is that we often, so many times, we don't have our environment set up to help us in those crucial moments. So what could I do? I could ask my husband to go shopping for me. I could go shopping in the morning when my willpower was at its highest, and I would say to myself, no ice cream. And maybe that wouldn't be enough, but I would at least try. Or maybe it would be, I'm only going to buy 2 pints of ice cream and I have to spread it out for the week. I don't know. Every situation is different. But think about those moments and bring mindfulness into those moments. And you may not be able to fix all of this right away, but at least being aware and growing from it. That's the most important thing. Are you changing? Is the process, to be honest, the process for me, like I told you, I went from ice cream to bland treats to healthier treats to treats for many, many years. And for many years, I didn't even want to admit to myself that I had to stop doing it. So it was a process. Eventually I admitted. Then I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do about it? I don't want to suffer. I like eating at night. But so my brain was growing, I guess is the point. So always, even if you're not perfect throughout this process, if you are growing and improving, that is all that anybody could ask of you, is to just try and to grow a little bit and learn. So, so this is kind of a recap of what, we talked about. Now, the one other thing I want to talk about just briefly is what CJ brought up. Yes, we have a good amount of time. What CJ brought up around slowing down around your meal, because I did not have that in my slides, probably slightly deliberately, because I think the mindful eating actually starts, like I said, in the morning when you wake up. But if you got on this call because you were interested in finding out about that, I'll talk about that a little bit. So I think that starting with the breath is a great place to start, because it's going to calm down your nervous system, and then you're going to be able to have the wherewithal to say, okay, what is it that I want to do with this meal? Is it, traditional mindful eating during the meal is where you would actually close your eyes and enjoy every single bite. And you can't have a computer in front of you. You can't be on your phone while you're mindful eating. It simply does not, that doesn't make any sense. For me, I try to practice mindful eating at my meals at least once or twice a week. It's not easy, but once or twice a week to go outside on my patio and sit and just hear the wind and just be with my food, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a meditative experience. And I encourage you to do that when you can. If you're alone, like during the day, maybe you're home alone at lunch or something, or you're in your office alone, it's pretty easy. It's not that hard to do. Even to just, like I said, to just give it that effort. And as we know, meditation is not about being perfect at meditating or clearing your mind. It's the act of attempting to clear your mind. That's where the work is. That's where you grow and change and get better. It's not about being perfectly, oh, I'm a Zen monk. No, it's about the act of engaging in that process of quieting your mind. And you can certainly do that while you're eating, which it is a beautiful experience to taste every bite and to give gratitude to where you got that food. Where did that food come from? Hopefully the farmer's market, most of it, or a local farmer. But if it's a box of Cheerios and some processed milk from the store, who cares? You can still eat mindfully when you do that. And as a matter of fact, if you do that, you'll probably eat less of that kind of stuff. Because that's one of the benefits. Oh, that was my last slide. The benefits of mindful eating. All of this is true. All of this. And I'm talking about mindful eating across the board, from, planning and understanding what you want and your whys, and that's more what I'm talking about, because this stuff here, especially confidence and empowerment, this is my business. This is why I do what I do, is to help women to have confidence and empowerment around food and around their health. It's an amazing thing. And if you have planned and you understand what you want and why you want it, you are going to have more confidence and you're going to feel more empowered. When you go to a party and everybody around you acts like they have guts of steel and they never, their health is perfect and they have no issues, and they're eating nachos with cheese dripping off of it and burgers and fries and it's dipped in barbecue sauce. And you're like, oh shoot, I was just going to eat salad today. That's difficult to do. But if you go in with confidence, like, I know what I'm doing, I know why I'm doing it, and I'm mindful in this process, it's a completely different experience. And of course, if you slow down, you can have more peace, more organization, forgiveness, flexibility. These are all the things that can come from truly, truly practicing mindful eating. And my last note, and then I'll go out of screen share, is part of this is absolutely the reason why I have forgiveness here and flexibility, is because life happens and you are human. And inherent in being human is that you are not perfect. So stop trying to be perfect and start forgiving yourself for all the stuff that you did that probably wasn't great for your body. Who cares? It's in the past. Forgive yourself and move on. Today is another day. Tomorrow is another day. You always have forgiveness. Every single day you have forgiveness for yesterday. And I think that is part of being mindful, is recognizing that you're not perfect. And having flexibility, if you're traveling or whatever, you're not always going to be getting, all the nutrition or eating the perfect low carb diet. So on that note, hi everybody again. We have like 14 minutes. I definitely want to end on time, respect everybody's time. I would love to hear thoughts, comments, and also if any of you have a goal that you want to workshop out here, and it doesn't only have to be me, it can be anybody on the call can provide advice or feedback to anybody else. That's the nice thing about being on a group call. So I will leave it open and take a sip of my smoothie here. Okay, so nobody has any questions?
No questions, but I just ordered the slow diet book, the slow down
CJ,
diet.
I can't hear. Are you talking, CJ? Because I can't hear you.
Yes. You can't hear me?
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me now?
It looks like you're not muted, but I can't, somehow your sound went off.
Really? Okay. Well.
Okay, try to figure that out. You can also type into the chat box.
That's true.
So does anybody have any comments about what I said? So I talked about a lot of really intense stuff. Oh, uh-oh. Okay, can somebody else say something?
Hi, it's
My
Carla.
sound, so you guys can all hear each other, but I can't hear you. Damn.
Jill, can you hear Carla?
Can you hear, and you can hear me, obviously.
Yes.
I have no idea why that happened. Hold on, I'm gonna disconnect from my headphones. Okay, can you hear me now?
We could hear you the entire time.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, phew. Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I have no idea what that was.
So Jill, this is Carla.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, and maybe a couple more examples from you on this would be good, was when you said, go deep, I understand, but then when you walked through, the steps, they were so small and so detailed, I mean, I didn't break it down, quite as thoroughly as you did. And I saw how if I did, maybe I could accomplish it.
Okay, so you mean about the whys?
Well, I sort of mixed the whys in with the what to dos. I was focusing a little bit more on you saying, okay, let's start the meal with 5 deep breaths, and we'll do that a couple of times a week. That is such a small step, but I could see where it could be very powerful. And frankly, when we first started the call, I didn't have an idea, of breaking it down quite so much.
Right. Yeah, so everybody's different. There are people who say, I'm gonna start going to the gym 3 days a week, and they really do it. But in my experience, it's quite rare. Mostly people need to do things in baby steps. There's actually a book called Tiny Habits, and he talks about that. And there's another book called Atomic Habits, where he talks about the guy who wants to learn how to play guitar, but he never does it. It's guitar sits there in the living room. He never does anything. But what he decided was that he was going to get onto his guitar for 2 minutes every day. Just 2 minutes. And from doing that, and he had to stop after 2 minutes, which was interesting. And then, my husband sometimes refers to it, leave something on the table, like make it so that it was so easy. It was so simple that you want more. You actually want more. So yeah, so in terms of breaking it down into the steps of building a habit, I could workshop out any examples that you want. Either.
Well, I would.
Go ahead.
One of the things I was thinking was I wrote down like eat less processed bad food,
Mm-hmm.
and then as like, okay, that's my step. But then I went, well, wait a minute here. When you said, well, you bought it at the grocery store, you brought it home, you stored it, and then you ate it. And each one of those are steps where you could have a goal. Like, don't turn down the cookie aisle is, at the grocery store is an example of, a step that you could take that would help.
Yes. Oh, I love it. That is exactly it. It's, there are a series of decisions. I call them crucial moments, but they're really, they're decisions. We make decisions. So at a certain point, you decide, even though there's not really much in the cookie aisle, right? Except for cookies. Why would you need to go down that aisle? You don't need to go down that aisle, but at a certain point, you make a decision to go down that aisle. And that's a crucial moment. And so the more aware you are around those crucial moments, it can help you change. So, because if you're not even aware that you made that decision, and by the way, when I say you, I'm talking about the dog in you or the animal, whatever it is. It's not the prefrontal cortex that's like, the legal mind saying, the rational mind that's knows that you shouldn't eat cookies. That's not the part of your brain that makes a decision to go down the aisle. It's the animal brain directing you. And if you're aware that the animal brain is just trying to be a dog, basically, like dogs really don't care, then in that moment you can say to yourself, wait a minute, this is my animal brain. What are my whys again? Okay, let me pull up my whys out of my phone or my pocket. Why do I not want to eat those cookies again? So pause, take that moment to really then go back to your why and what it is, what's at stake here? What is at stake here? And then you can change. And maybe sometimes you say, you know what? I don't care about my whys right now. And that's part of life, but trying to, not do that, obviously. So, Christina, I think you were going to say something. I cannot. Can you guys hear her?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. No, it had to do with the 5 breaths.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering whether those are like a way of preparing to eat mindfully. So in a way, you're saying that you have 5 breaths and then anything can happen. One can eat very quickly. And as long as you have the 5 breaths, at least is a small step. Is that what you meant?
Yes, that is exactly what I meant. Because, and I always use the example of when my younger daughter, Sonia, you saw my girls, right? So when Sonia entered like nursery school 3 days a week, up until that point, I didn't work out for years and years. And I had 3 days a week where I would walk for 15 minutes. That was it. I couldn't muster up the strength or the energy to go to a gym. So all I did was I walked 3 days a week. And I did that for a couple of years, actually. But eventually I was able to build on that habit and start working for 45 minutes. And then I was able to go to the gym. And now I go to the gym. I'm at the gym like 5 hours a week. So, okay, it took me a long time because the kids were a big X factor and all of that. But I can't answer that right now. I'm sorry. Just she has to wait. Sorry. Those kids are, I guess so. Yes. No. I cannot answer that right now. No. I'm so sorry. lost my train of thought. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
you were saying that you gradually built up from walking to going 5 hours a week to the gym.
right. So if you have five breaths
Mhm.
and you do that for a couple of weeks, maybe that will turn into 10 breaths.
Mhm.
Maybe that will turn into, I'm going to close my eyes while I eat. There are so many different ways with mindful eating that you can do it. But the reason why I start with the breath is because by breathing is this incredible thing that we have, that there are not many ways that you can change the state of your nervous system consciously, right? I guess like there are other ways, but as far as I know, breathing is probably the easiest. It's definitely the freest. Doesn't cost anything. You could get a massage or something, but if just by taking 5 deep breaths, you are going to slightly shift your body into a parasympathetic, which is the more rest and digest mode.
Can I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think it's unreasonable to wish that and to put into effect that you would be mindful when you eat all the time rather than once or twice a week?
I think it depends on what your goal is and how badly you want it and why you want it, what you're trying to achieve and all of that. No, I don't. I think that it's completely reasonable. I mean, there are a lot of people who would think it was unreasonable to spend 5 or 6 hours in the gym each week.
Mm-hmm.
So it really just depends. Like that's for me really, really important for my goals, for my health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exercise is so important for our health, but so is breathing and being mindful and eating slowly. Those are also really important. So if you really want it, I don't think it's unreasonable at all.
Mm-hmm.
You can start. I just know that most of the time people, they get excited and it's like, I'm gonna do this, and then it falls off. So that's why I strongly emphasize the very gradual change. And maybe it's 10 breaths. I struggle with meditation, and I know how important it is for health and just overall functioning in the day. I really struggle with it. So right now what I'm doing is 10 breaths when I wake up, and I listen to Gregorian chants before I fall asleep. So this is my baby step right here. These are just little tiny baby steps. And if I could just do that every day, maybe I could take 20 breaths in the morning in a couple weeks. And then eventually I can build into 10 minutes of meditation in the morning. I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So it's 12:59. Does anybody have a quick question? Comment?
This was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you came. So this is recorded. I will post it on to the email list. And if you have any questions or anything, you always can email me at any time. Okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's nice to see everybody here. Thanks for coming in the middle of random Tuesday.
Well worth it.
I'm glad to
Thank
hear
you,
that.
Jill.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.